Sonia was the unparalleled beauty of her village, her eyes as deep as a gazelle and her lips like pink nectar. She had a small, sweet shop in the market, where every morning she would get ready and sprinkle perfume on her delicate body, whose alluring fragrance would drive any young man crazy. That very scent would wave through the air all along the path, enchanting people towards her, as if it were a magical attraction. One evening, as she was closing up the shop and heading home, she heard the rustle of footsteps behind her. When she turned to look, there was only silence. Sonia thought it was her imagination and walked on. Suddenly, a frightening Jinn stood before her. It looked human-like. Its eyes were shining like fire. Sonia wanted to run, but her feet became heavy like stone. The Jinn came closer and stared at Sonia with such hungry eyes, as if it were the first glimpse of human beauty. In a deep, trembling voice, it said, "You are my destiny, Sonia. I will marry you." Sonia was stunned. Her breath seemed to stop. Then the Jinn presented a shiny bag to her. It contained gold and silver. Sonia's eyes gleamed with greed. The family's debt, the cure for the village's hunger. She couldn't speak, and what the Jinn did that night shook Sonia to her core. Sonia was focused on the money, so she couldn't say anything to the Jinn. And then what happened with that young girl was hard to believe. Amina's sweet shop felt less like a shop and more like a lamp of hope, which flickered and died every evening in its struggle to stay lit. For a shop, there was just an old, worm-eaten wooden board. In the glass cabinet placed on it, there were more flies buzzing than sweets. Sonia was like an untouched lotus blooming in the mud of that village. Her complexion was like a dewdrop bathed in the first sun of the morning, with a natural glow. When she walked, her waist-length, silky black hair would sway as if a dark cloud of the monsoon was swaying, intoxicated. But this beauty was more of a burden than a blessing for her. It was like a priceless diamond that had accidentally fallen in a coal mine, whose brilliance the outside world couldn't see, and which was making her more and more lonely and alienated from the inside. The village women would whisper upon seeing her, Allah gave her beauty but forgot to write her fate. And the men looked at her with such eyes as if she were a sweet they wanted to devour. Amidst this poverty, her mother's relentless hard work, and the world's piercing stares, Sonia had built her own separate, private world. This world was trapped in a 6-inch shiny screen. Her old, second-hand mobile was her friend, her confidant, and the only escape from this colorless life. When Amina would wake up in the pre-dawn darkness and roast the koya on a wooden stove, her eyes turning red every morning from its smoke, Sonia would be curled up in her bed, lost in that colorful, digital world of dreams. When Amina would doze off sitting at the shop's counter, waiting for customers, Sonia would be in a dark corner of her room or on a friend's terrace, laughing and talking in that mobile world, watching the lives of people whose lives were as far from hers as the earth is from the sky. She watched videos of girls who drank coffee in beautiful cafes, who showed off in expensive clothes, and in whose world there was no place for mud or smoke. With every video, her own life started to sting her more. One morning, the usual hustle and bustle was absent in the house. The black smoke rising from the stove was missing, and instead of the sweet smell of sugar in the air, a strange, heavy silence had dissolved. This silence was so deep that it woke Sonia from her sleep. She came out and saw her mother lying unconscious on the bed, covered with a sheet. Her face was pale with pain and her lips were parched. Trembling, Sonia placed her hand on her mother's forehead. It was burning like fire. This was the moment when the mobile's shiny screen shattered. The veil of ignorance crumbled to ashes. and the ruthless heat of reality scorched Sinya's very being. The village Hakim, who was better at guessing than diagnosing, gave some powders and strict instructions that her mother should not get out of bed for weeks. Now the responsibility of running the house and her mother's medicine fell on Senya's delicate shoulders. A storm rose inside her, a storm of fear and helplessness. She picked up the old diary, stained with oil and turmeric, kept at her mother's bedside. It contained recipes for the sweets. That diary was a witness to Amina's hard work. Its pages were damp with sweat and tears. With trembling hands and a frightened heart, she stepped into the kitchen. This was an unknown world for her. The first time she roasted gram flour, her hands got burned and she screamed. The sugar syrup would sometimes become hard like stone, and sometimes thin like water. Many times, frustrated, she would sit right there on the kitchen floor and cry, like a child. Then she would remember her sick mother's pale face. She would remember her pained eyes and wiping her tears. She would get back to work with new courage. After days of relentless effort, with a heavy heart and an unknown fear, she went and sat at the shop. And then the scene at the shop began to change. A crowd started gathering at the shop. But this crowd wasn't for the sweets. They were infatuated with Sinya's beauty. They would linger for hours on the pretext of buying sweets. Someone would try the dirty trick of touching her fingers under the guise of giving money, while someone else would say such vulgar things that Sanya would turn red with shame. There was such a sticky lust in their eyes that Sanya felt as if thousands of insects were crawling on her skin. Every evening, she would return home with earnings that felt like wounds on her soul, and would silently sit by her mother's head and massage her feet so that her tears wouldn't be visible to her. Mother died one night, exhausted from the day's humiliation and sunk in worry about the future. Sanya was fixing some old household items. Then her eyes fell on her mother's heavy shishemwood chest. That chest was always locked, and Amina kept its key tied to the end of her sari. Perhaps in a hurry today, her mother had forgotten to lock it. Driven by an unknown curiosity, Sanya lifted its heavy lid. Beneath a pile of old photos and zari-embroidered clothes, there was a small velvet pouch. Inside it was a very beautiful, intricately carved small glass bottle. The design of that bottle was so fine and unique that it seemed as if it had been made not by human hands, but by fairies. Upon seeing it, Sanya remembered her mother's years-old warning from when she had once tried to open that chest in her childhood. Her mother had scolded her, saying, "Never touch that perfume. It's not an ordinary fragrance. It's an illusion, a deception that leads the soul astray." But today, Senya's desperation, her helplessness, and the daily humiliation outweighed her mother's old fear. She thought, what worse could happen in my life? I am already living in hell. With trembling hands, she opened the crystal lid of the perfume bottle. The fragrance that emerged from that bottle didn't seem of this world. It wasn't just a scent, it was a complete feeling, an intoxication. It had the softness of freshly bloomed, night-blooming jasmine and roses, the purity of sandalwood, the intoxicating smell of earth after rain, and something so mysterious that it descended directly into the soul and captivated it. That fragrance had a strange allure, a promise, a hope. She thought for a moment. Then, gathering all her courage, she put one drop of that perfume on her wrist and one on her neck. The next morning, when Sanya sat at the shop wearing that perfume, everything had changed. A crowd had gathered at the shop. They were all drawn like madmen following that fragrance. Today, there was no lust in their eyes, but a strange a devotion like madness. They would just silently keep looking at her as if gazing at a celestial being. That day, There were immense sales. A month's earnings happened in a single day. There was no longer a shortage of money at home. Sanya was happy. She felt that all her troubles had been solved. She felt that she had finally gotten a piece of that world from the 6-inch screen. But she didn't know that the fragrance which had attracted humans had also stirred up a world that was hidden from human sight. A powerful jinn, imprisoned for centuries in a nearby deserted Mughallira ruin, had awakened to that scent. This was no ordinary jinn, but an ifrit from the most powerful and rebellious tribe of jinns, made of fire, and whose power had no limits. That fragrance was a call for him. A call he had been hearing for centuries, but which had never been so clear and so close. Searching for the source of that aroma, he reached Bishampur village. When he saw Sanya, he became infatuated with her at first sight. But this infatuation wasn't like human love. It was an obsession to possess a priceless thing, a desire to capture a unique work of art. Now he started staying around her every moment, like an invisible shadow. One evening, while returning after closing the shop, darkness had enveloped everything. Then Sanya clearly heard the sound of someone's footsteps behind her. She turned to look, but there was no one. She thought it was her imagination. As soon as she moved forward, he was standing right in front of her. His body seemed a strange mix of smoke and shadow, constantly changing its form. His eyes were like two embers, smoldering in the dark, holding centuries of loneliness and a terrifying power. A deep, resonant voice emerged, which echoed not in Sanya's ears, but directly in her mind. "Don't be afraid, my queen of fragrance. I am a prisoner of this aroma that resides in your every breath. You are made for me. I want to marry you." Sanya's scream got stuck in her throat. She ran the fastest sprint of her life and reached home, locking the door and panting. She tried to forget it by thinking of it as a bad dream, but a few days later, he appeared again. This time, he was present inside her locked room, like a shadow in the air. He gave her a week's time. "Think, Sanya, either become my queen and rule a world where time and beauty never end, or endure a life in this mud that will be worse than death." After that day, Sanya stopped going to the shop. She lived day and night in an unknown fear. One evening, when her courage gave way, she hugged her mother and burst into tears, telling her the whole story. But what happened next shook Sanya's soul. After hearing everything, Amina's body stiffened, and then she started laughing. A cold, alien, and terrifying laugh that couldn't belong to any human. Her eyes had the same ember-like burning glow. She was not her mother. In her mother's form, it was the jinn. He said, "See, you cannot escape from me. I am in the air. I am in your breath. I am in the bodies of your loved ones." And saying this, he vanished into the air. Sanya, screaming, ran towards the other room where her real mother was sitting, looking worried. Then her mother's eyes fell on the perfume bottle on the table. Her face turned white with fear. Trembling, she picked up that bottle and unveiled. "A deep secret. Your grandfather made this. He was no ordinary man, but a very accomplished scholar. He used this perfume to attract rebellious jinns and then control them. But this knowledge was very dangerous. You have unknowingly made a free and very powerful jinn fall in love with you. Now we have to go to your grandfather's last disciple. He is the last lamp of that knowledge, the only one who can save us from this fire." The next morning, before sunrise, Sanya and Amina left home. The scholar's whereabouts were 2 days' walking distance from the village, across a dense forest. This journey was full of dangers. The jinn wouldn't let them go so easily. As soon as they entered the forest, a rustling began in the air. The tree branches started taking weird shapes, as if they were stretching their hands to catch them. They constantly felt as if someone was following them, staring at them from behind the trees. The jinn had spread a web of illusion and fear. Suddenly, Amina started seeing a bloody witch in place of Sania, with protruding teeth, and Sania started seeing a frightening shadow in place of her mother, with no eyes. Both screamed and ran away from each other. But then Sania remembered the lesson her mother had given her. Fear is the jinn's biggest weapon. She closed her eyes, mustered all her courage, and called out, "Emmy." Her voice had so much truth and love that the veil of illusion tore, and both could see each other again. At night, when they stopped under an old banyan tree, a pack of hungry wolves surrounded them, their eyes glowing like green embers in the dark. They knew this was also the jinn's trick. Amina courageously lit a fire, and both mother and daughter stayed awake all night, holding each other's hands, reciting verses. This journey was not just a path, but the biggest test of their broken relationship and Sania's courage. After 2 days of fighting difficulties and fear, they finally reached a small mud hut at the edge of the forest. Knocking on the door, a weak-old man opened it. His beard was white like snow, and his eyes held a deep sadness and years of fatigue. He was the disciple, Ramatali. Initially, Ramatali flatly refused to help them. He said, "I left all this work years ago. The cost of fighting these forces is too great." He showed the severed fingers of his left hand. "My teacher, Sania's grandfather, had warned me, but I tried to fight him alone to save my daughter from a jinn's influence. I couldn't control the jinn, but he took my daughter's voice forever. She is mute now. I cannot make this mistake again." Sania fell at his feet. Crying, she said, "My grandfather gave you his knowledge, not so you could hide it out of fear, but so you could help someone in need. If you don't help me today, that jinn will take me away. Can you bear to see another girl's life ruined like this? Don't make my mother pay for my mistake." In Sania's eyes, along with helplessness, was a glint of courage that Ramat Ali hadn't seen in years. Seeing her courage, Ramat Ali's heart melted. He saw a reflection of his own daughter in Sania, and a chance for his own regret. With a heavy heart, he agreed to help. Ramat Ali told them that it was no ordinary jinn, but a powerful ifrit made of fire and smoke, who angers very quickly. He explained, "The perfume your grandfather made is incomplete. It is bait to attract jinns, not a cage. It can attract the jinn but cannot imprison it forever. To imprison it, we have to wait for the night of the new moon, when the power of jinns is at its lowest." He explained the plan. They had to go to the same ruin where the jinn lived, because that was the center of its power. There, they had to make a circle with a special kind of pure clay, inscribed with verses from the Quran, and the most important thing was to prepare that perfume bottle again. Ramat Ali said, "We have to make this perfume not just a fragrance, but a spiritual lock. To complete this imprisoning perfume, we need to add 3 things to it: the sweat from your mother's hands, the sweat that was shed for your upbringing, a true tear of regret from my eyes, and a drop of blood given of your own free will as a symbol of your courage." Hearing this, Sania trembled, but she knew she had to do it. Together, they prepared that perfume. Amina remembered her hard work and produced sweat. Ramat Ali cried, remembering his daughter, and Sania courageously made a cut on her finger and let a drop of blood fall into it. The night of the new moon, dense darkness and such silence that even a heartbeat sounded like noise. The 3 of them reached that deserted ruin. Ramat Ali recited V's and made the circle, giving Sania the new powerful perfume bottle. He said, "When he comes, don't be afraid. He will offer you every kind of temptation. He will make every dream of yours come true before your eyes. But remember, everything he gives is a deception, a sandcastle. You have to force him yourself to enter this circle." As soon as they finished their preparations, a strong gust of wind came, and the Jinn appeared before them. This time, he was in the form of an extremely handsome prince, with stars seemingly falling from his clothes. Stretching his hand towards Sania, he said, "Sania, leave the company of these mortal humans. See what I have brought for you." He waved his hand in the air, and the ruin transformed into a magnificent palace. Heaps of gold, silver, and diamonds were piled up. Servants were running around, and music dissolved in the air. He said, "All this will be yours. You will never have to work. You will never have to endure anyone's dirty stares. You will always be young and beautiful. Just take my hand and be free from this poverty forever." For a moment, Sanya's eyes were dazzled by that brilliance. She remembered her poverty, her helplessness, the humiliation she endured at the shop. Her heart wavered for a moment, but then she remembered her mother's face, her hands roughened by hard work, and Ramad Ali's trust. She took a deep breath and said with courage, "I don't want your fake palaces. The bread earned by my own hard work is dearer to me. I don't want your eternal youth. Every moment I spend with my mother, even as we grow old together, is precious. To me, your love is a beautiful prison, and I want my thorny freedom."